I don't know if we're streaming or not. We're having technological difficulties. Record the meeting though, so ready.
All right. Call this meeting to order. Is it 7 o'clock? It's 7 o'clock. Ms. Stevens, will you call the roll?
Ms. Stubblefield.
Here.
Mr. Anderson. Ms. Capel. Mr. McDade.
Here.
Ms. McNatt. Here. Ms. Mitchum.
Here.
Mr. Norton. Mr. O'Connell.
Here.
Ms. Ray.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the May 6, 2024 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Do you want to do acclamation?
Hmm?
Do you want to do a vote back? You mean call the roll? All right.
We can just vote yes or no. All in favor of the minutes approval from May?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any citizens' comments? Or citizens? New business, so, do you want me to talk about this, or is this one here?
Sure.
Welcome to the start of our Affordable Housing Study Committee. Today, we're just gonna learn what some of the things mean. We've been tasked by City Council to look at the broader definitions and options of what's out there to present to them. We'll be defining some things like what does affordable housing mean for Folly Beach? Who would it apply to? Things like that. And then we will also present council with some options. But today is just informational only. And next month, we will hear from some experts. But before we adjourn tonight, we're gonna talk about the kind of things that we think we need to hear from experts. And then Jenna can get in touch with people, city, council, nonprofit, those kind of things. Anything you would add?
You ready for me?
Hmm?
Okay. Alright. Hi there, everyone. I printed out a couple of copies of this only to, because it's so big and unwieldy and it's just the same information that I have up here. But if anyone wants a printed copy to take home, let me know. There's also some paper and pads there, something you might want to take notes for yourself if you have any questions. Feel free to use that. So here is, welcome to the first meeting of the study committee for affordable housing on Folly. This information today in this PowerPoint is a fraction of the information that exists in, not even in the world, in Charleston County. There's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of people working on a lot of different things. So this is a drop in the bucket of introduction, and then I want to take guidance from y'all on, maybe you say, I didn't talk about veterans. I'd like to know more information about veterans, or whatever it may be. So have that in mind as we go through all this. So here's your charge, last 3 bullets here. We're gonna learn about local existing programs, accept public comments. That will be at a future meeting. We didn't advertise this as a public hearing. We will advertise a public meeting, public hearing at one or more of the future meetings. And then develop recommendations. So ultimately, y'all will come up somehow as a group with a consensus on some recommendations to send back to council. And this is the most important slide. These are the questions that council would like you to answer. So who is the target audience? It could be first responders, it could be people who work for the city of Folly Beach, it could be people who work in the city of Folly Beach, it could be a certain, anyone with a certain income limit. And then the income ranges, we'll deep dive into the local income ranges here. What cost limits apply? Cost burdened is the word that the federal government uses that's how people who need affordable housing, and that's if they're spending 30% of their net income on housing. Where should it be housing supported? In the city limits of Folly? Within a 15-minute drive, within a certain number of miles, something like that? And then what should be the primary method? And as we'll discuss later in here, there seem to be two buckets that can be used. There's actually building houses building houses and providing assistance in that way, or cash subsidies to cover people's rents or mortgages.
Jenna, can I ask a question?
Yes, please interrupt me as we go along.
Okay, so, and this may be looking for something that you're not there yet, but like giving us the list of who is the target audience, the income ranges and all that, you know, we're kind of charged with recommending these things. Is it, like when they're asking for a recommendation, can we give several recommendations and say you all pick the best one? We think this is a good general direction to go, and then we, you know, send it to council that way, or does it need to be more definitive?
I think the first one.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we could kind of keep it broad and say we've done all this work and here's everything for all these different things. We think these three are the best way to do it, and y'all pick, or something like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Or based on funding, it might come down to that too.
Correct. Right.
And
you
that's
could
something
give
that
levels
council-
of it.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Council will be addressing funding, so that's not in the purview here.
Right. Okay.
Okay. What is affordable housing? This started as a conversation on Folly after the short-term rental cap. People talking about long-term rentals, and so that we're using that terminology. Long-term rentals. Other places also call it attainable housing. Basically, it's below market rate housing in some sort of form for people who have certain income limits. And the federal government, of course, has low-income housing. Section 8, it's mentioned here a little bit, but the target here seems to be more the moderate income is what they call this gap in between low-income housing that the federal government is working on and people who can afford the insanely high house prices here in Charleston. Workforce housing is designed for people to live close to their place of work. And so the ones mentioned here that a lot of people talk about, teachers, nurses, first responders, there's also hospitality, which is what our economy is here on Folly, the people who keep the city going. And these definitions, low income and moderate income, those are the federal guidelines for the median, based on the median family income for the area. And we'll get to that too, what that is. Area median income, that's what I just said, what of these incomes levels are based on. Cost burden we talked about. I'm not gonna read these to you. Housing choice vouchers that's Section 8 funding, and where the federal government pays the private landlords and the homeowner pays up to 30% of their monthly income. Not up to, exactly 30%. And here's the difference I spoke earlier about project-based versus tenant-based. The project-based is a building that is designed for for affordable housing. Tenant-based is a subsidy that the person can choose a home of where they want to live. Here is the Census Bureau data on the median income. I did this for Folly, City of Charleston, and County of Charleston. So that number, 88,000, according to the U.S. Census, is the median income in the city limits of Folly.
Well, I had just written down a question about that. Does census, do you know census info gives any info on people who work on Folly but don't live on Folly? Is there a way to?
I don't think they have any way to target those people. That's who I want to target in a survey, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Charleston County, and some of this slide has actually been updated since I sent it to y'all, so I'm going to send you a new slide with some of the a new link with some of the updates, and several other links, because there's still a lot of information I want to share with you. And then city of Charleston. So dwelling units, we have 2,391 dwelling units in the city of Folly Beach. And the interesting thing about this data is if you look, say, at City of Charleston, population of 150,000 dwelling units, roughly half of that. You see that in McClellanville, where Ravenel, the places, if you look at the islands, then Isle of Palms, there are more dwelling units than there are population. That's because of the number of short-term rentals that there are in these places. I just thought that was interesting when I looked at this. So this number has also been updated. This is current rental registrations on Folly. We have 1,052 short-term rental registrations and 134 long-term. And that is not to say that they are affordable for long-term. That is just the number of people who have a business license to rent long-term. And we define long-term in Folly as more than 30 days. So that could be a 31-day rental or a 12-month. This is the map of where those long-term rentals are. I have an intern this summer, and she was able to do this, and I think it's great to show the clustering of where exactly those 134 are. And the difference in colors doesn't mean anything. The red, or doesn't mean anything for these purposes. The red is we have data on how much they're charging, and the yellow is we do not. The Public Safety Department has a rental assistance program right now. It's for full-time public safety, that is cops and fire, both sides. And if they live in the city of Folly Beach or in the jurisdictional limits of James Island, which is, it can be town of James Island, it can be county, it can be city of Charleston, but if it's on the island itself, then those employees qualify for a monthly allowance. And it's first come, first served until the pot runs out. $600 on Folly Beach and $300 a month for James Island. These people have to take their vehicle home, their cops have to take their vehicle home and respond to emergencies. And in the policy, there's even they have to respond to 80% of emergencies.
What do you mean by the pot runs out?
It's a fixed number.
It's a fixed number?
It's a fixed amount, $36,000 a month. A minute. Would you say 3,600? Yeah.
3,600 a month.
3,600, so potentially, if they were all Folly Beach, it lived in Folly Beach, it would be 6 people would qualify for $600 a month.
How many currently take advantage of this?
I don't know. I'll have to ask them. I think it's maxed out.
Okay.
I don't know that.
Okay.
Let me ask and clarify.
And then maybe how many maybe don't live on Folly but also live on James Island if there is.
Okay. That was a good question. And I did ask Andrew if this was effective for recruiting, and he said he thinks it's effective both for getting people here and for keeping people close by. There's no income limit on that. It's all public safety, full-time employees. I'm going to go through these real quick. I'm not going to read every one. The islands that I started with here first, they all talk about about affordable housing in their comprehensive plans. I just want to illustrate that other islands are having this conversation, but there's not a lot of concrete action just because it's a very difficult topic to sort of conquer. Sullivan's Island talks about cost burden, 305 households, the cost burden's there, and they want to have more conversations. Edisto Beach, they have concern for the issue. Mount Pleasant, that first number I thought was, I want to bring your attention to it. 70% of Mount Pleasant's workforce lives outside of the town limits.
Yeah, but what is ours?
Pardon me?
35?
I want to get that on our survey.
Okay.
That's what I want that number. I think that's very relevant to this conversation. Mount Pleasant created a task force in 2016, and it took them 2 years to come up with their recommendations. So there's a lot that can be discussed here, and in 2018, they incorporated a nonprofit that is working on bringing affordable housing, and this Gregory Ferry Towns is their biggest initiative, and it's the first attainable housing complex in Mount Pleasant. There's 42 units. There's the income limits and the square footage of them. Sorry, no, that's the townhome prices. The income limits are between 40,000 and 62,000. And this one, important to note, there's a 75-year deed restriction for these homes. A lot of the places, especially in the city of Charleston, they have incentives for developers to offer affordable housing, and they only have to offer it for about 10 years in a lot of cases, and then it goes to market housing. So I think some of these places are catching on that they need to do it for longer. James Island, looking into it. Ravenel, I threw this in here because this has been in the news recently, the Tumbleston tract. It's undergoing rezoning in Ravenel right now, and it's contentious, and you could read about it in the newspaper. The family member, this is not a formal commitment, but they have committed to creating more affordable housing as a part of this whole rezoning request. Maybe just to sweeten the deal because of opposition. So I don't know where that necessarily will go. Hollywood wants to coordinate with other agencies and the state. Megat wants to encourage affordable housing. And all in all, knew that 35% of their households are cost-burdened. McClellanville. Now here's something that's going to come up a lot. McClellanville encourages allowing subdivisions to cluster parcels. That means adding density. That is adding density.
Only as it relates to affordable housing?
That is a solution that I am seeing a lot. There are a lot of different ways to do that, but adding density, getting people closer together, is less traffic, less infrastructure problems. That is a solution to, that helps the affordable housing problem. Kiowa, in 2015, wanted to consider the affordability of housing in their latest comprehensive plan. They have taken that out, and they say they just want to support the development of workforce housing in the greater Charleston area. I called over there to see what that means, and they don't know. So we'll see where that goes. City of Charleston has a lot of information on their website. I'm going to send you a link to their dashboard. You can play around with it and see they have 5,500 units available right now of affordable housing and 800 in the works. But according to the experts there, they need 10,000 more to meet the demand. Excuse me, 16,000. 16,000 more to meet the demand. 882 currently in the works and existing 5,694. This map, I wish it was interactive. This will be helpful in that link that I send you. This is at the City of Charleston dashboard, and you can zoom in and see see specifically what these dots are and what kind of programs they are and what kind of what kind of income limits they have. It's very specific, and so that James Island information I think is very relevant to us. So this will be important as we move along. Hilton Head, this is all new, this is not in your packet. I'll send it out with these amendments. The target audience on Hilton Head is workforce housing, and they recently hired a chief housing officer. So they have a full-time position that is designated for increasing workforce housing. They also have a lot of great information on their site. I'm going to send you a link for that. A one-bedroom apartment in Hilton Head is $2,000. That I did find that. That's hard data to find because these are private companies that are offering these rentals, and they don't have to tell anybody anything. And so we're trying to get that number for you on file. These next eight topics are, I'm just gonna go down through them real quick. This is from Hilton Head's strategic plan for housing, and it's just an example, it's a sample of the types of things that a city can do. So the first one is to have money. They want to create a trust fund to be able to spend on whatever affordable housing projects they do in the future. The second one, there's a zoning change to allow commercial buildings that are not being used right now to be repurposed as workforce housing. The third one is make town-owned land available. The town of Hilton Head Island owns 2,000 acres of land. That is bigger than the island of Folly Beach. They had a policy, they said, I think it was 1983, to just buy land whenever they could. And so they've been doing that now for 40-something years. That's how they have so much land. Number 4, establish a density bonus program. That's a zoning change or some type of zoning change. 5th, employer assisted. These are for public sector employees, and it's either a down payment, help with the down payment, and and rental assistance. The 6th one would help developers. The property tax and impact fee rebates would be an incentive to including workforce housing in a development. Number 7, this is basically a message board that connects people who are looking for public housing, for affordable housing. Then number 8, this is the low income housing tax credit is an incentive for developers. This is a federal program. It's the largest source of affordable housing financing in the United States. And that qualified allocation plan that they talk about controls how the states spend this money. And then Hilton Head, importantly, has started the process of using accommodations tax funds for affordable housing. We're going to talk about that in a minute. That state law just passed recently that opens that, it frees that money to be used for workforce housing. So I talked a little, Hilton Head especially, a little bit about what the solutions are. What can cities do? Public-private partnerships, housing voucher programs, the zoning incentives to allow for more density, so accessory dwelling units. That's a way to encourage workforce housing, allowing them where they're not already allowed. Increasing the height of buildings. City of Charleston did this. If you provide workforce housing, they will give you, in a multifamily unit, they will allow you to build taller than you otherwise would be able to build. More multifamily zoning. Reduce parking requirements. That's relevant on multifamily lots, on apartments and condos, not on single family, but because you throw up 800 units and then you have to have all that space for the cars, and that's sometimes a burden. And then building affordable housing near transit. So this is the law, the accommodations tax changed last year. The second bullet allows local accommodations tax this adds, there's 6 other things that it can be used for: civic centers, promoting tourism, infrastructure, advertising, and beach renourishment, and now the development of workforce housing. That's not defined, development. We're not entirely sure what it means right now, but this is a potential pot of money. And we're gonna watch Hilton Head closely to see what they're doing. Because as far as I know, they're the only people right now pursuing that. And this is how they define workforce housing. 30% to 120% of the area median income. Here's just a few examples of some nonprofit solutions. There are others. A community land trust. This one, they own the houses and lease, they buy and build houses and lease them to people directly. Palmetto Community Land Trust in North Charleston. I found another one in Hilton Head, the Coastal Community Development Corporation, so there are several of these out there. Be thinking about what kind of expert you'd like to hear from. So as we go through this, I'm going to ask you at the end, because is it a municipality of what's working there or what's not, or is it or somebody from a nonprofit who maybe has more of a 30,000-foot view of the entire, of the history of the issue. Habitat for Humanity, we all know what they are. This was interesting, that they did build this year a community of homes. Normally it's just a home here and a home there, and they have a set community of affordable homes, 10 a year for the next 5 years on Johns Island. And this chart on the right is very helpful. This is for the city of Charleston. I think it's 2023 data. Bridge North Charleston recognizes that affordability of housing is a complex issue, and they need to look at other things, the totality of the circumstances. And they offer financing. It's a no down payment, 100% financing that's available for home buying. And this is ARPA gap funding. That's a community development block grant. So the federal government gives the money to the state then decides who gets it, how it's used. And again, this is important. This one is deed protected for 99 years. Private businesses, these two, I didn't do a lot of digging into this as a solution for obvious reasons, but I did think this was really interesting. The Sweetgrass Pharmacy in Mount Pleasant has bought 3 townhouses and rents it to their employees below market rate. And then Roper St. Francis is also working on building houses on their campus. Oh, and then I read this in the paper this weekend. The Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta just launched a program offering $10 million of funding to first-time home buyers in the Southeast. And it's for closing costs and the homeowner has to put down $1,000 and be within 80 to 120% of the AMI. So the survey I want to talk about. There are some options here. I want guidance from you. I see this kind of going in 2 ways. We could survey current residents, people who live on Folly, and ask them, would you qualify for any sort of income assistance or public housing, or more likely, are you willing to pay for it? Is this something that you think the city of Folly Beach should be pursuing? And or we can survey the people who actually work on Folly. We know how many businesses there are. We know where they are. This is something we can get FAB involved with and ask if they would help us survey their workers. How long does it take you to get to Folly Beach? How long do you commute? How many miles is that? What is your income? What are your rent costs?
That's what I'm interested in, and then you guys would already have the data on city employees. Or, I mean, you could also ask them,
We can
how long does it
include
take
that.
you to get to work? And the same questions that you would ask. Hospitality.
And then as we go along through this, at all times, anyone you talk to has an idea and wants to participate, please send them either to comments@follybeach.com or email me directly. And anything I get, I will share with all of you.
I think the market rates on James Island would be helpful. I can get those
Okay.
for you, because I think it's important for people, owners of properties or developers, to know what the market rate is that they could get if they wanted to enter into the Section 8 program. Or if they wanted to do public-private combination, where you could offer some at above market rate, some at market rate, and some at 80% of AMI. So the market rate, I think James Island is fairly high, the market rate. James Island and City of Charleston are the highest out of our surrounding communities. And so I would think we'd be able to base ours on theirs.
That would be great. I
Okay.
can get that. Thank you.
Can we get a list of the properties that Folly Beach, the city of Folly Beach owns? Is there a map or is there a list or,
There's not a map, there's not a list. I can tell you.
we have to know, I mean.
Well, it's where we're standing, public safety, the water plant, some parks, and some unbuildable unbuildable beachfront lots. So there's no empty lots anywhere. I mean, just sitting around the building.
There's no acreage at all.
There's no acreage at all. It is all programmed space. And then I included this examples of model programs. If you find anywhere in your research someplace that is doing something successfully, please share. So this is the next 3 dates for the Planning Commission, the already set dates for the next meeting. In August, I'd like to invite one or more experts to answer your questions. So I'd like some feedback on who you'd like to hear from about that. And
Definitely somebody who has, like you said, like a long-term view, that they know what's been done in the past in the Charleston area, not necessarily Folly, but, has anyone tried and failed, or have they just said, this is something we want to do, started working on it, and it just didn't, roadblocked, never got to implement any kind of plan?
so somebody who could show what's not successful.
Well, just anybody who knows what's happened in the past and how far they've gotten and what were their roadblocks, see if there are any obstacles we could find ways to overcome to make it successful.
From like municipalities or
Mhm.
the private?
So could be, a nonprofit would be a good one. One that's worked on it and found a solution. Would something like the Palmetto Land Trust
Is that what you like?
be a good one?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I don't know much about them. City of Charleston person.
I can get somebody from City of Charleston Housing Authority.
Anyway, somebody from Hilton Head would make the drive.
I wonder if somebody from Mount Pleasant with this program, that they've, I mean, they've put in 2 years. So, maybe that's worth listening to how they landed where they did too. And is it successful, or do they see it lasting, that kind of thing too.
Okay, I can ask all of those. That's good. That's helpful.
I think something that I mean, can we get like a broad, idea of what are we what is our need? Do we need 10? I mean, I don't think it's realistic that we're gonna get 50, but what is it that we think we need? How many affordable housing units? 10, 20?
Would we get that from the survey? We probably kind of get some kind of answer once we know.
Or a feeling based on what transpired over the last couple of years when the discussions about short-term rental were taking place, and there was, there was discussion at that point that we would like affordable housing and we need it. So was there any thought put into, well, how much do we need? Because that will, that will definitely impact what direction you're gonna go in as to all of these different options.
And part of why this is so hard is, for that, I think knowing what the recommendation is.
Would come, okay.
Whether you're
Would
saying.
help that.
Yes, whether you're
Okay.
saying give subsidies, or you're saying support new.
Well, it's probably gonna have to be a
Right.
little bit of each one. Anything that you can get, maybe, 5 people to agree to do housing choice voucher, section 8, and then a developer to agree to do a public-private combo, or, so
The city
it's
of
just
Charleston
gonna be
put a number
like
on
1
it.
or 2 of each. It's not, it can't be one
Sure.
size fits all.
So Charleston and Mount Pleasant both have come up with a number that they think is the demand for
Okay.
their cities. I'm gonna reach out to them and figure out how
Okay.
they came up with those numbers.
While we're sending surveys out to those who are having struggles with finding reasonable rates, could we also send out surveys to property owners who are currently short-term renting to find out what would incentivize them to use their properties for what cost, what opportunity cost could the city, since we don't have buildings lying around for us to utilize, what we could do to incentivize those who are already leasing just short-term to move into long-term direction? What's that number?
You can email all short-term rental owners. Yes, we can do that, and that could be part of, when I said there's kind of 2 camps for the survey, that I think would go into the first one, people who are already renting here short-term.
And what commitment that would be for them?
What would they
So
need?
when you're looking at the days, 30 versus 31 and up, what is long-term renting for them?
That would also apply to the long-term renters,
Correct.
because they may say, well, we'll, incentivize you to reduce your rent to be able to accommodate someone in the 80 to 120%, AMI, and, for this, because they could be close. If somebody's been long-term renting for a long time and they're not, they're just, not charging a ton, it could be a close.
And I think if we look at like
Could be doable.
days too, like what, when we consider what is long-term, when you
It
look
is.
at the actual calendar dates, could they essentially do that? Could they commit to that successfully?
I think right now, long-term is more than 30 days.
Right.
But I think for for what we're doing, we want it to be
Exactly.
annual
Right.
increases.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what if they couldn't budge that much? So a happy medium between. And then what's the red tape involved in, once you leave Folly, the island of Folly, once you pull out into John's Island and you can get into more of a county discussion on the development, purchasing land, et cetera. What's the red tape involved? Here, writing checks, vouchers, it's a one type of program when you're on the island, and who that would target. But once you move in off the island, you're getting into more of a county discussion.
Are you
Am I right?
asking for surveying people off the island that are close by?
I'd like to know more about what the processes would be in
Yeah,
having county support.
I work with a bunch of multi-family apartment builders that are national. I can see if I can get 1 or 2 of them to come in or send someone to give us info, because they do these kind of deals all over the US. So I work with a couple of Monarch Bridge and a couple others, and I'll see if I can get one or two people to attend a meeting and talk, you know, how do they do things in a regional area that can help multiple municipalities.
That'd be great.
They gotta have people that do this all the time.
Because someone might be working for Folly, not living on Folly, but they also might be working for Folly, for Johns Island, for James Island, depending on the gig or whatever. So it might be helpful to look into county support and what we can do with our own funds.
Got it.
Who are we trying to offer affordable housing to? How many?
That's what you're here to
I
decide.
mean, are we gonna
That's what
do
we'd be
all
surveying.
bartenders too? I mean,
Maybe.
If that's
where
what you
does
want,
it end and where does it start? I mean,
where you want it to.
okay,
That's where, that's the discussion that's gonna come next and eventually settle on something,
you could probably come up with 500.
right? Right, it's complex, it's a complex
Oh,
topic.
yeah, I know.
But when we look at Folly and trying to support its multi-generational and, you know, in terms of its diversity, it would encompass not just city staff and firefighters and it would, if we're really trying to diversify and keep supporting diversification on Folly, then we would have to look into the extension of all types of jobs.
And after the survey, oh, I forgot to mention this, we're also trying to, we don't ask long-term renters, people who offer long-term rentals.
Landlords.
We don't ask them how much they charge, but we have some of that as data, and we're trying to clean it up to get you two pieces of information that I think will be helpful here. How much does it cost to rent on Folly Beach right now? What is it per bedroom? Long-term. How much is a long-term rental average per bedroom? That is something we have incomplete data right now and working to find. And then the second one, what was my point? And then what? How much per month? And then something else that's gonna come back to me in a second. That once you have that data, I think it would be
And how many
more.
people?
How much they make.
Oh, the people who actually live on Folly Beach, yes, what are the income levels of the people, bartenders, City of Folly Beach, all of that will be presented to you, and I think that will help narrow your decisions for that discussion.
Could we also get a data point on how many long-term rental permits there were over the last 5 years? Because
Absolutely.
everyone I know is flipping their long-term rentals into short-term prior to the change. And now they're just selling or trying to sell. So it'd be interesting to see that decline as the short-term
Right.
rental increased.
Right, and we can get that.
Also, in terms of, and I hate to bring up the word cap, but considering that we do have right now a cap in place, we still don't have a waiting list, correct?
It starts in August? August.
So- There's a lot of factors that create this issue, and it's not just short-term rentals, it's, you know, interest rates for mortgages, et cetera. But if we do have a cap in place, then this could technically not be, I mean, theoretically speaking, long-term, this could be, in terms of a program, it could be a short-term issue as the number of short-term rentals slowly decline, then it would open up more opportunities naturally for long-term renters. So if we knew where we were in terms of a waiting list, then we'd be able to better monitor and predict which homes were starting to open up for opportunities to either, like you say, sell or become long-term rentals.
So the, important to note there is we are over the cap in
Right.
short-term rentals.
Right.
So 1,052, I think it is. So there are, even before we get to a waiting list, there are 252 people who, over attrition, over time, are gonna have to, bring that number down.
So as we bring that number down and see who's on the way, it would be nice to have more or less an overall idea where we are to see year after year how that progresses down and what is left from that.
And we're
Did they
tracking-
sell, right,
We're
right.
tracking that over time too, and we'll have that.
But even with that, the people that we're targeting for, when we decide who all we're targeting, even with some more long-term rentals, it's still not gonna be in the price range that they would.
Correct, but it will become a more competitive market, just nature of the beast. If they have the property, they either, if they can't short-term rent it, then they, you know, they're left with those costs, so it would still become more competitive over time.
Yeah.
Before the cap, I'm Stacy Ritchie, business license official here. Before the cap, we had roughly estimated 86 or so long-term rentals, and today we have 134. Out of those 134, most are not affordable. So they're 30 days or longer for a long-term rental, but that could be 30 days to a nurse or winter rentals. And honestly, perfect example, the two properties right next door to City Hall are $3,500 a month. That's not affordable for someone who lives on the island or possibly
And
works for the city.
30% of $68,000 is $1,700.
Yes,
So,
so, the.
Your
least-
choice is you're gonna have to subsidize
Right.
$1,700 a month.
The least
Huh?
The math
expensive
doesn't
rental
pass.
that
It doesn't.
I know of on this island right now is $1,450. And that is for a one-bedroom.
Cheapest I know is 1,600 and it's at one room.
Right, so
How big is
it's,
it?
so even though we have more long-term rentals now, they're not necessarily affordable.
Right.
It was an option for owners who could not get a short-term rental license to try to recoup, you know, some type of revenue for those,
Gap
for their
fill.
properties, yeah.
For the survey, what, are we going to be kind of going to get through together on what questions are gonna be on that survey? Like, how old is your property? How long have you had it? What is your mortgage? Is it fixed? Is it 30? Is it 15? Like, did you buy it last year and, you know, did it get all the glitz and glamour and now we're having to kind of cover the cost of that? What are the questions that are gonna be on the survey? Are we gonna be part of that?
So I've taken notes on what y'all want so far. I'm gonna send it back out to you, and then I'd like suggestions on more things that you'd like to ask. And we'll do that before the next meeting so that possibly we'll have the information back to you in August. It probably won't be compiled and, because we'll leave it open for, you know, 3 or 4 weeks. So, okay, so September, we'll be getting this back to you. But, yes, I will ask input from the planning commission on what questions to ask. I'll start based on what y'all given me here.
So how many bedrooms are those 2 units by City Hall? Do you know how many bedrooms?
2 bedrooms,
They're both
and they're
2 bed-
furnished.
Okay.
Yeah, they come furnished. But we have properties out here that go up to $9,500 a month.
Yeah,
You
I was
heard-
just
you heard that
looking at
correctly.
those as an
And
example.
that
There's
is a
several.
3-bedroom property that's $9,500 a month.
There are several for 7,000 a month.
Mhm.
I'm gonna sit down and let y'all.
One more thing about the survey, going back to the businesses. I think, you know, you ask, you know, the employees, them to check with their employees, what are they interested in? But also maybe ask the businesses, what are they interested in providing for their employees? You know, are they willing to, you know, pay the rent for, you know, 4 of their employees or whatever? Like, what is their threshold to do? And would they be interested in, you know, a voucher program? And, you know, the burden would lean on them, not on their employees, because there is a lot of turnover and, you know, but, you know, maybe with the, you know, the tides and, you know, places that are, you know, been here for a while, they're gonna be here for a while. Maybe, you know, ask it that way as well, to kind of blanket all the businesses and what they might be willing to do.
Absolutely. Got it.
I wonder if they would
I'm gonna
have
sit down
any
and let y'all keep
solutions
discussing
without
this.
saying, are you willing to do A, B, or C?
Right.
Or if you just say, would you be willing to do anything, I don't know if they would.
And they may not, we may not
They're
ask
probably
them.
like us right now, where we're like,
Right.
I don't know, I gotta see what's
Right,
out
but
there.
would you be willing to entertain it?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to have the conversation, you know, of what, you know, tell us what the threshold might be, you know, because, yeah, it's a big question. Sure.
So how many of them are there? Definitely. What were their payroll based on, we could use their W-2s from end of last year, and then average distance they travel to get to work, yeah.
Or if they even wanna live here. We're just assuming everybody just that works here wants to live here.
Well, would they want to be on James Island so they can get away?
James
and then,
Island's
you
closed,
maybe-
you know,
Right,
and
right.
there's affordable housing on James Island. The city of Charleston has,
And it's not quick on
you know, so
Saturday
that's
after
why
work.
we have to somehow
Raining.
figure out really how much we need,
Uh-huh.
you know?
Right now, we have restrictions on what we can do with a building versus getting the short-term license. We can't take a building and put 10 more rooms on the building right now. And,
Like a home?
right, with all these new, the fine print on what we could do with our property when we're when we have a short-term license. We can't add on rooms currently. But if you have a property that is a short-term rental and they would be open to long-term renting if they could add on more rooms, would that incentivize someone to long-term rent if they could get the go-ahead to change or improve their property?
I think that's that lot clustering or
Density.
higher
Or going
density, yeah.
vertical.
City, right.
Okay, got it.
I'm
Because
just
if
trying
I
to think
had
of ways that maybe we can look at the property owners, since we don't have properties really to
That's
work
one of the
with.
thoughts
go
to
up.
me that I think would be most successful, just because if you think of what taxes are for a non-primary resident, that you have to bring in enough income for taxes, insurance, and just general maintenance, that you would have to have multiple units to account for the income you would lose had it been one short-term rental, which
Right.
are so high, but.
And I like that Hilton Head was it Hilton Head that you have up there that has a property manager for their long-term rental properties? Because whether it's short-term rental or long-term rental, maybe people are hesitant to put their house on that roster because they don't want to fool with the management. But if the city is behind long-term renting and promoting that and advocating for that, then would the city, I guess we would need to survey y'all and find out if the city would be in support of having a long-term renter management.
What do you mean by that? 'Cause
Didn't I-
They call it the housing official.
Okay,
And
so they don't actually take these properties and, you know, manage the day in, day out issues of that property.
no,
It still is left upon the property owner.
it's that person is, however we're doing it, working towards increasing the affordable housing options. They're not actually managing the
Oh,
property.
okay.
What about doing it like sending a first survey out, identifying all of the full-time employees on Folly? So it will be all of the public service, the city employees, and then any full-time employees that may manage the businesses. You know, 40-hour a week, not hourly, where they may only be on the island 2 days a week or 3 days a week, but true full-time employees, and survey them and see if they would be interested in living on Folly if there were affordable housing options. Because that may be 50 people or 100 people. And then you get an idea, half of them may say, no, I'm happy where I am. I have family, we live on James Island, or no, I would not be interested. Because, like somebody said, the part-time or the workers, they come and go. I mean, they may work for a month or a couple of months, and then they are no longer on Folly. But that's a way to at least get an initial idea of the immediate need for the full-time employees here.
Sure, got it. I will include that.
So, the main thing we needed to decide tonight was who we want to hear from next month. Did anybody have any other opinions or questions you want answered by someone who's worked on this before?
What's your deadline to know that? Like, if we come up with, we're doing some
Oh,
research and
yeah.
we're like, what about this person? Like, how much time do you feel like you need to try to get somebody in here? I mean, let's see, August 5th, so maybe 2 weeks or something before?
I think at least 2 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, if y'all think of anybody tomorrow or in the next week,
Right.
give me a shout and I'll explore that too.
And maybe we could reach out to them and be like, if you're interested, then put you in touch. If do a little bit of the legwork.
Sure.
Okay.
So at the August 5th meeting, I put 7 p.m., we're gonna have a work session at 6 p.m. to talk about the tree ordinance that has been remanded to you from council. That's still on the table, and it's pretty complicated. It's complicated, and so I think it'll take a little bit to really even just explain it and understand what it looks like now, and then what our options are for that. And so that'll be kind of its own meeting at 6, and then there won't be any decisions then. You'll have a month to think about it, and then vote on your recommendations in September. And then at the 7 o'clock regular meeting, then we'll hear from the experts that we find, and y'all will have the opportunity, we'll present any of the incomplete data that I said we're still working on. We'll get that to you also, and you'll be able to discuss and ask more questions.
All right.
Anything else?
Got a long road ahead of us.
I do have questions about the using the taxes that we receive from
Accommodations tax?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage, right, I need to know more about the percentages right now, where those are going currently.
So I can tell you we receive $2 million roughly a year in local accommodations tax. 50% of that out the gate goes to the beach renourishment fund.
15?
50.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the other, I would have to find specifically, we do have an ATAX committee that takes applications from the city for people who are holding festivals or things that are bringing tourists in, and they get part of that too. It's a grant type process. And so I can get you exactly where all of that goes.
And you're saying Hilton Head is currently the only one that you know of right now that is taking that tax and putting it back into workforce housing?
Right.
Can we find out what percentage
I was
that
about to say,
they're
they have
using?
so much more than housing units and,
Yeah, they've got everything, land and
It-
everything,
right.
but still, it would be nice
So-
to know what percent they fell on
yes,
for using.
and there is a limit in the state law. So only 15% of the chunk that a city gets can be used towards this workforce housing.
But we could raise or lower that technically, couldn't we?
No.
Oh.
We're maxed
Accommodations
out. It's the local accommodations tax is a 3% tax on all accommodations. The 3% is the max that a city can impose, and we do that.
Okay, we're at 3%.
We're at 3%. That's where our 2 million comes from, and only 300,000. Wait, what did I say? 15. Yeah, 300,000 of that in a year could be used towards development of workforce housing.
But that's a good point, because we need to know where it's going now. Can it even be diverted into a program? Does
It would help if it were like,
somebody lose funding?
in the pie form, I work well with graphics.
We can do that. I will have that for you next time, absolutely.
Or your interim, put her to work.
Mhm. She did all the charts.
Yeah, the charts are helpful.
Yeah. Anything else? In your pack, oh, we forgot to vote, did we vote on the minutes? Yes, we did. Right behind the minutes in your packet, there is an announcement for a safety action plan meeting on July the 11th. That is, it's in the Sandspur as of today, and we're gonna be putting it on Facebook. Please attend, please spread the word. This is a consultant that we hired to take the island as a whole, look at, they have some really incredible data about what the dangerous intersections are, and then they're gonna offer solutions of how to fix them. And once we have that plan, that qualifies us or enables us to apply for certain federal grants to address those specific problems that are brought up there. So we wanna hear from as many people as we can on July 11th.
Will this be live streamed?
We're gonna record it and then put it on the website afterwards.
Okay, so afterwards, if you're gonna be out of town or something, you
Mhm.
could go and watch, okay.
Okay,
That's it? All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
okay, second. Wow, my computer turned itself off right as we.
Can you email out those updated
Yeah, I-
PowerPoint? Okay.
Excellent.